How are you? That worked. Absolutely. It's Lucifury, Lucifuri. I used to be a battle rapper and I needed an aggressive name. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Yeah, how many of you all have heard of slam poetry before? Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, basically in 2011, I was a part of the Denver team that won. So yeah, give Denver a round of applause, right? The National Poetry Slam, largest spoken word competition on the face of the earth. And I'm like, okay, what do you do now? All right. And I guess folks like what I had to say, and so here I am. I'm going to do something a little different than I originally planned. And what that is I'm going to talk in between my poems. Is that all right? I was just gonna rattle them off and be like, thank you. Be sure to tip your waitress. But I think now is the time for a little bit of discourse. And so here's what I'm gonna do. I got 3 poems for you today, 3 whole poems. And I'm gonna arrange them in order of significance from past, present, and future. And I might as well just start with something that recently happened to me. I go to speak at this school. This was like 3 weeks ago. And I asked these kids, this was a very, very upper crust school. I said, well, what the heck is the significance of Black History Month? They were like, well, frankly, in post-racial America, it's kind of patronizing to even have a month dedicated to somebody's history just on the basis of their skin color. And I said, awesome. You know that in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. If you don't know what was happening in 1491 on the second largest continent in the world, which is Africa, you realize why you need Black History Month. Because the reason why you don't know is the exact reason for the season. And I happen to be African American, but my folks are from Jamaica. 4 generations ago, the men in my family were cutting sugarcane on a plantation. My grandpa's grandpa was a slave. Now, I do speaking gigs at universities where I earn more in 1 hour than he earned in his entire lifetime. I have the blessing to be not descended from slaves, but to be ascended from people who I believe had a superhuman quality about them. Not that they were inherently superhuman, they were people who had to make superhuman decisions every single day of their lives. And one of those superhumans I got to meet. What happened to my mic? Okay, anyway. My grandfather, his name is my name. His name is Theo Wilson. And shortly after I did my first teacher librarian day, he passed away. But here's the interesting thing. My grandfather was what was called a Tuskegee Airman. You ever heard of those guys? Yes. Certified red tail. On his final birthday, on January 10, 2012, a limousine shows up at his door from George Lucas. George Lucas sent my grandpa a limousine so that he could go to the Red Tails premiere in New York. And on his final birthday, he was honored with a trading card. They took pictures of all those surviving airmen. And so I say that to say that that's where I'm going to begin this presentation. My grandfather was an iron man for iron times. I love him, but he wasn't easy to get along with. How many of you know some older folks kind of like that? But I forgive him. And the reason why I forgive him is because of the fact that he had to be who he was for the times that he was born in. And so this first poem, I'm giving honor to my grandpa, first man in my generations, in my bloodline who have ever earned a college degree, ever. And so we're going to start there, then we're going to go to the present, and then we're going to future. Is that all right? Well, the first poem is called Mahatma, and it's dedicated to my grandpa. And it goes like this. Show me a man who's tougher than the times, and I'll show you the foundation of a dynasty. My grandfather taught me firsthand what oppression looks like. When oppression's got a black eye and missing a few of its teeth. The man's got Jim Crow's head stuffed and mounted on his wall, and the body he keeps in the freezer using the flesh for fishing bait. And you wonder why I walk this way. Like I come from a bloodline of Negroes with adamantium steel in their bones who came off a slave ship from the planet Krypton. It's because I do. They don't make my folks like this no more. My granddad's melanin absorbed ultraviolet light like chlorophyll, so when his oppressor tried to starve him, he could always eat the sun. And they say that the Hindu word for a great soul is Mahatma. But Theobald Wilson was nobody's Gandhi. You smack him, you got a bullet coming back for each finger because he keeps hollow points chambered in his knuckles. You don't dare men like this in the armed conflict when your jaw ain't even hard enough for their words. What do you know about being black in a time when you weren't even allowed to look at the white or the clouds in the sky and then holding your head up anyway? Because the children needed to see that it was possible. And the fact that their daddy is a Tuskegee airman is proof that those clouds could one day cushion their footsteps. And you wonder why I walk this way? You would glide too if you knew that you shared your Y chromosome with Superman, my daddy's daddy, but you could call him Theobald for short, the great soul of the Wilson family, a man whom our destinies rotate and spin around like planets due to his sheer existence and the force of his gravity. And I don't look much like him. I only bear the shape of his jaw, his blood, and his name. What could a guy ever ask for in life? A chin that can survive a direct nuclear strike, and a name that reminds you to survive, to surmount, to surprise, and to surpass. And when the times get tough, the tough will... They're spitting the truth in spite of the blood in your mouth is what real manhood is all about. So if this world leaves you as much as one breath in your body, then Mahatma said, knock you out. I've seen a steel mill on two legs walk amongst us mortals with more courage in his shadow than we had in our whole soul. A man who taught me at the tender age of 4 years old that wild turkey whiskey cures the common cold. I once looked in the sink after he was done shaving his face and his severed hairs condensed and formed the word warrior. And there's more to your granddad. And whether or not this world remembers your name, because you're already a folk hero immortalized in the images stitched into my grandmother's quilts. The highlight reel of your life sewn into the fabric of forever. Yeah, Grandma, she loved you like that. In this life, when they measure the impact of your footsteps against the weight of the world, there's only one question that needs to be answered. Were you a Mahatma? A great soul? Are you a Mahatma? Did your walking set fire to the sands and make smooth the ways so that those who follow you may reflect on their paths? A great soul ain't nothing but a star that traded its plasma for a pulse to walk a while so that our journeys may shine through the darkness. Thank you. So I currently work in a landscaping law firm that has a lot to do with the environment. And I started to contemplate how interesting it is that humankind has solved a lot of problems. But in solving problems, it seems like sometimes we create two more problems where that problem was solved. Example, it has been said that the very invention of the automobile was to stop the air pollution from horse manure. Problem solved. But there's a few more that crept up in its place. I did this poem at my very first TED Talk over at TEDx Mile High. It's on the internet, and I just love doing this for schools. This is the basic education that without Earth, nothing matters. And so I wrote this poem to the greatest rock star on the planet herself. This is Garden of the Gaia. And it goes something like this. There is a car that runs off of air. It weighs less than 1,000 pounds, and its only emission is cleaner air. I drive a freaking used Buick LeSabre. It was more handsome than the more fuel-efficient car that I could have bought, but its paint job had this feature that deflected women away. I made a choice. Like many, I wish that my will to do good were at least half the size of my carbon footprint. It's like this big, massive boot size, 7 billion and counting, with enough weight, it can stamp out creatures bigger than we are. We turn the rubber and the souls into erasers for names like Balaenus mysticetus, the bowhead whale, Panthera leopersica, the Asiatic lion, Pongo pygmaeus morio, the golden orangutan. How can we be so certain these are not sentient, intelligent beings when 300 years ago, if you wanted to see me read a poem, they'd have made me do it from the inside of a cage? My, how times have changed. The culture, not as drastic. It's not surprising that the same mind that invented chain smoking is now burning down the rainforest. That's the cliche part. But if every time you put down a pack, another acre grew back, would it be enough to make you quit? That there is the growing pain. But see, they don't make nicotine patches for our logging addictions, and we don't touch the earth anymore. When's the last time the dirt underneath your fingernails was actually soil? When I was little, I had a garden, and my parents forced me to see that loving the planet is a lot easier when it's not something that you're afraid to actually put your hands inside of. For every surface in this world, there's a creature created to love it. And of all of these tiny creatures, my favorite were the bees. You see, to a bee, a garden is a city where the skyscrapers grow out of the ground and every level is an all-you-can-eat food court. With the wings like jetpacks in the absence of elevators, but when they puke, it's something you'd actually want to put on your Cheerios. Who's the superior species? Well, let's see them try their hand at Guitar Hero. But the most beautiful part of a bee is its stinger, because it only gives it one shot to harm another being, and at that point, it must sacrifice its life. Would you sacrifice yourself to protect the same pine tree that died to make the deck of your patio? At least when you shelter a tree, you get to stay alive. What could we learn if we allowed them to breathe? Because one day, I want to write poetry as perfect as the way that God writes water into the veins of a leaf. Last October, I saw a maple that autumn turned so red, it looked like a sculpture of a frozen flame. So I stared at it so hard that the bark grew from my pores, and this tree is what I became. I was only gone for a second, but I came back with a message. Trees speak with their roots, and what they had to tell us is that we are all tiny creatures in the garden of the Gaia. Our cities are stone sculptures that hold the heavens up when the mountains would no longer suffice. And we are one consciousness shift away from turning this world back into a technological Eden, where the air car that I want doesn't float above my pay grade. So you want to save the planet? Start by appreciating what's left of it. Don't you know that the grass always knew that you were a guitar hero? Because since you were a child, it's been letting you crowd surf on its hands as you looked up to the sky and began to understand that you were just a tiny creature who would cease to exist if this garden ever ceased to keep giving. Thank you. So I used to work in the inner city with the at-risk population, the population I came from. And I remember working in these environments where on one hand, the teacher would tell the student, sky's the limit, be whatever you want, follow your dreams, right? And then on the other hand, institutionally, the kid was told can't after no after no. You can't be this, you can't be that. And these standardized tests that have come down the pike that I wonder what they're really testing, because if you look at all of the great minds that changed our worlds, none of them thought like the kind of thinking they test for on these tests. They were all right brain creative minds who had a great left brain like bridge. You see what I'm saying? But I deal with the fact that, why is history so important for our future? It's because I'm living in a world where, like, the very school systems that are supposed to educate our kids are kind of looking like prisons more. And, like, a lot of the way we punish children creates criminal records. And then sometimes we target little boys that look like I used to look. You see what I'm saying? Rather than judging a different kind of intelligence. Young boys got physical intelligence. It's hard for a male child to sit down. He's supposed to be a warrior out there, you know what I mean? He's climbing and running and jumping, figuring out how to hunt instinctively. Many of our boys, not all. But this is the kind of thing we have to start moving education models toward. So I wrote this poem for the kids. I kind of wrote it for the adults, but it's really for the kids. So this poem talks a little bit about, it starts at their level, and then I'm going to just branch it out. And it's called Impossible. This is for the attitude that I can. Everybody say with me, attitude. Say it me. Attitude. The attitude that I can achieve no matter what. So yeah, this is impossible. And it goes like this. I'm gonna start it off. Now if you wanna be somebody, if you wanna go somewhere, you better wake up and pay attention. The time is now or never to make your dreams come true. You better wake up and pay attention. I want the finest girl in school to reject me just to see if I can walk off with my swagger still intact. I'm bad. My breath is like Egg McMuffin, double Dutcher with double mint on my hopscotch tongue. My mouth is chalky. That's what confidence smell like. Girl, you tripping. I'm gonna be somebody, though I know I'm exhaling more high octane than a Hummer. But still, how can I ask for a record deal one day if I can't ask for your number? And when Thomas Edison failed over 3,000 times before making a light bulb, then can I use your cold shoulder as a hot stepping stone into history? I thought so. Impossible. Said the horse-drawn wagon to the jet engine. Said the telegram wire to the text message. Said the colors only sign to little Sasha Obama. Did you know that you will encounter at least 400 items a day that would not exist without Leonardo da Vinci, a man who did not see the inside of a schoolhouse until the age of 14. Einstein failed beginner's physics in 1899. Dr. King packed a pistol before 1960, and you have a dream on the wrong side of a canyon called tomorrow, have cried the river in between and have misplaced your grappling hook. But just because something is impossible does not make it not worth trying. Who cares if the summit is unreachable if climbing that mountain makes you into one? Strangely, courage only comes after you do the thing that's scary. But ask David just how tall Goliath looks when he's on his back. You are a stone's throw away from being legendary. Angels have carved your statue in heaven and wait for a reason to ship it to earth. Don't let haters handle your postage. Believe me, my people know a thing or two about doubters. There was a time when the Negro brain was thought scientifically capable of inventing memory and nothing more. Citing quotes, "There's a physical difference between them that will forever forbid them from living together upon the footing of perfect equality with whites." Abraham Lincoln. Now, as articulate as that may be, I believe the black folks who dreamed up the air conditioner, almanac, elevator, traffic light, super soaker, cell phone, peanut butter, the pyramids, and fire will disagree. Mr. Lincoln, we got a wireless call from your ego. He said, emancipate that. Show me you're impossible. Tell me it can't be done. I'll show you a climb to a height unreachable is a climb already begun. Impossible says a cancerous tumor to its extinction. Says war-torn Africa to its return to global glory. Says the shooting rampage to its pending place in ancient history. Says the oil company to sustainable being the new word for duh. Do these corporate executives know that we inhale at least 10 sextillion atoms with every breath, meaning due to global wind patterns over 1 year's time, you will breathe an atom breathed by everyone on earth and who has ever lived, meaning this poem is likely literally being brought to you by Shakespeare. Of Arc, Kennedy, Tubman, Dubois, Guevara, Yeshua, Yo Mama, and all of them asking, forget a millionaire who wants to be a mountain anymore. People who keep the script flipping more hardcore than parkour, reminding haters, your failures are not my border patrol. My dreams ain't your dartboard. I want the finest minds in science to reject my potential and see if they can walk off with their faces still intact. Oh, I'm bad. My breath is like humanity, limitless, unbounded, and impossibly free. Thank you very much. I'm Theo Wilson.